So we're back with our 13th socially distant studio visit for Hallwall's Contemporary Arts Center. And today we're talking with Jennifer Locke, who I forgot to ask, but I believe is still in San Francisco. Um, and
That,
Jennifer showed her work at Hallwall's in 2009 in an exhibition called Actions, which was a series of documents of performances made for the camera and recorded for the camera. And that was a great show that I always remember very fondly. Enjoyed having you here. And so it's great to be able to talk to you again today. And my first question, as with everyone, must be, how are you?
well, I'm good actually. Today I'm good. I was actually rather enjoying. I mean, not to be a jerk, because I know a lot of people are suffering through all this. But in the first week, I was delighted to not have to go anywhere or see anybody. And I actually lived in LA for a few years. I moved down there and then I came back because I didn't find LA a good fit for me in a lot of ways. So I moved back here in the summer. And so I live out near the beach and Golden Gate Park. And so I'm right near all this nature and I surf. So I've been surfing, I was gardening. And then shortly thereafter, they announced the imminent closure of the San Francisco Art Institute, where I teach, and also where I have this long-standing relationship and deep, bone deep love of the place and the culture there. And so then it turned into this explosion of, Zoom union meetings and alumni meetings and how are we going to save a school? So it wound up turning from this very relaxed, free feeling to this really upsetting crisis. So,
well, that was my third question, but
yeah.
let's move ahead to that because all of us here were very disturbed to read the article about the Institute not accepting student admissions for the fall, and that it would close after 150 years. So is there any kind of an update you can give us, something that's positive or some steps that are being pursued? Because it is such a well-known place. I mean, I know artists here in Buffalo that went there, and it's revered, it's highly thought of, and it seems like a disaster that it wouldn't exist anymore.
Yeah, well, there's so much to tell that with keeping it simple. There is a chance, how do I put this? So basically, the Board of Trustees has really lost the trust of the community. And so I think everybody wants to save the school, but they're afraid to give donations because they're not clear on what's happening with the money. So there is a big movement to try and save the Art Institute. And I do believe it's possible. I think that they need to make some major shifts in, first of all, changing the narrative, because when that New York Times article came out, it basically said the school was closing, which wasn't really a done deal at that point yet. So the press. But things are quite bad. They have no money. They're deeply in debt. So my fantasy is that that they will hopefully get their shit together and get everybody on board and get some kind of plan that we can all kind of sign up for, and then they can do some major fundraising. So they're potentially going to close for a year and then reopen, but I don't know how that's, we're all very dubious about how that's going to work. So we will see what happens. I am really doing all I can as somebody who knows nothing about running an institution or how to, fix these kinds of things. We're all very concerned and very upset and trying to do what we can to save the farm, so to speak.
Can you, I don't have a sense of the size of the faculty or the number of students. How large is it?
The school is very under-enrolled right now. I think we only have about 300 students this year, and it's really, I think they were saying they need it's designed for more like 700 students, and they were hovering around 400. They're just, enrollment has been declining, and I think that's true in higher education in general, from what I understand, particularly art schools, but also that in combination with the fact that their admissions and development departments have been doing kind of a real piss poor job of getting people in there and promoting it. So there's just been this entire series of bad decisions and poor administration that's kind of led to this huge, basically it's just this rupture.
So this rupture would have happened regardless of the pandemic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, there was another thing. There were talks of merging with another institution, which frankly, I don't think is a great idea, even though, I mean, structurally and financially, it's probably great, but I think it would kill the spirit of the school because then it would be, what's great about the art students is all fine art students being taught by, artists and scholars as opposed to, nursing students taking an art class for fun. So, not that there's anything wrong with that, obviously, but that's kind of what makes that place special, I think. So I don't know if that would have worked in terms of keeping the school as kind of hardcore and kind of radical as it's been all these years. But anyway, when the COVID virus hit, supposedly, from what they've been telling us, that the institution backed out. And, the other thing is that, we don't know if they're even going to be teaching, any schools are going to be teaching in person in the fall anyway. So in some ways, I wonder if maybe this isn't the worst okay timing, because if in fact schools are going to be teaching online only in the fall, then a lot of students wouldn't want to take classes, at the Art Institute in the fall anyway. So.
Yeah, and I want to segue from that into a much more positive educational question, which is I've been interested in artists that are teaching and how they're, especially with visual art and the fine arts, having to segue. It's remote teaching is hard on everybody, but it's weird, especially when you're dealing with materials and studios and MFAs and things like that. And I noticed a week or so ago you had posted rather enthusiastically about a performance art class you'd had, and you seemed really pleased by how that went remotely. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I teach in the new genres departments, so those students are kind of context experts anyway, or they're learning very quickly. And I often, I basically threw out my syllabus. I made this new syllabus that's all about addressing the whole camera, this thing here. So instead of, do a live piece utilizing, an extended amount of duration, we're doing things designed for the camera, basically. So right now I'm teaching a class called Performance, Sound, and Language. And so, shifting it to Zoom is really not that big a deal. I mean, it's nice to all be together in the room, and of course it's totally different, but we're just kind of making lemonade, so to speak. And I think that the students are doing a great job. And honestly, I don't think it's any less, the quality doesn't seem to have fallen in terms of the student experience and my experience as a teacher. And then the other thing I'm teaching is graduate tutorials, where I meet one-on-one with people anyway, and people show me their work, but we spend most of the time talking about conceptual issues in their practice anyway. And so they're not really able to make work in the usual ways. So I have no problem spending an hour talking to a student about what they're thinking about, what they're doing, how they're doing it, all those kinds of things, or any other issue they want to talk about. And a lot of the students want to talk. Some of the students have been had to go back to where they live, and some of them. One of my students lives in Taiwan. One's in Colombia. One's in Argentina. So they're all over the map, and so it's very weird. And so a lot of times they want to talk about what their next steps are anyway. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was just fascinated because I thought performance was one of those media that is almost ideally conducive to the current moment, because performances are often done for the camera if you're not doing it for an audience. So
Exactly.
I thought that was really kind of like a nice little thing, given that I know people that are having to deal with trying to get their students materials, like they're teaching high school and they're trying to drop off materials for them, and have them do material-based things.
Well, I have a friend who's teaching oil painting, and it's like, he's like, it's impossible. You just, it's sort of a ruse. There's almost no point. But, so I feel lucky that I can say like, okay, this week we're gonna, I don't know, write a text piece, and you're gonna, yeah. So it's very easy to shift it over to this format. So you're right about that, yeah.
You set up my next question in a kind of bucolic way, talking about going to the park and surfing and doing these wonderful things in isolation. California was, like New York State, one of the first states to really seriously get on the pandemic and set down guidelines and start giving people guidance on how to social distance and that. And can you tell us a little bit about how things are on the ground in San Francisco? Are people generally, obeying all of that? Is it a ghost town? Is it, what's it like?
Well, I've seen a range, and it's certainly gotten, I think over time, people are conforming, if you will. In the beginning, like after the first couple weeks, I would go to the park, and sometimes people would be running and they would get really close, and but today, I actually went for a run today, and most people are wearing masks outside, and some of them have a mask that they put on when they pass you, or I think people are being pretty well behaved. The parks are quite, I don't go to the park on the weekend because it's just too crowded. And in the stores, people are also pretty well behaved. Excuse me. I know I've seen and heard, well, for example, when I was giving a class right when we came back after the shelter in place had been issued. And one of my students after that had happened, was doing class from a van, driving with like 6 other kids in it, driving back from Portland. So, yeah, I think younger folks are having a harder time taking it seriously, as young folks do.
Yeah.
They have different priorities and different risks, so I think most people are behaving pretty well, but there's probably a lot of, folks socializing with bigger groups, and they probably ought to.
So surfing must be like the perfect thing to do at this time.
It's perfect, although it's remarkably crowded. Everybody's off work, so. But yeah, you're supposed to stay kind of far away from each other anyway, so that works out great. They did shut the parking lots though, because I think they're worried about people getting too close. Oh, and I will say, like, the beaches were fucking mobbed right after the shelter in place was issued. So. It's sunny, supposedly the UV light kills the virus, and it's windy, so it's probably not, but, so it definitely has cut the crowds back, but it is quite crowded on the weekend. But yeah, so you have to park a little bit further and walk a little bit further, but it's worth it.
Well, my last question that I like to ask everyone, is there something that you're not able to do right now, whether it's a big thing or a little thing, that would be among the first things you want to do when whatever version of normal returns?
Yeah. Well, I had an exhibition scheduled in a East Coast tour of, I was going to go see some family and go to New York, and I was supposed to shoot some video work for that. So that whole thing got completely shut down. So that was a bummer. That's my artist answer. But my person answer is, I really miss hugging my friends. I know that sounds corny, but like one of my best friends lives 2 blocks away, and we've been going on these socially distanced hikes, where we stay far away from each other and we talk. And I know it's really, I'm a very physical person, so I miss being able to touch her.
There's nothing there's nothing corny about that whatsoever. Like we're in the arts, and so we're used to being around people. We want to be around people, and there's nothing. One artist I asked said the first thing she wanted to do was just to be in a store and browse, which I thought was a good idea too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, other than being with people and being close with people and having that, it's such a different energy than this. Artists are sensitive, right? We're sensitive to energy and space and stuff. So yeah, absolutely. I think I do miss that. I miss being able to, I feel very, my heart really goes out to my students, who are, I don't know, I feel responsible for them. There's some like parental thing kicks in for me that I feel somehow like I wish I could provide them with the space to be together in this way, because I think we're humans, we're animals, and we need to be around each other. So luckily I live with my boyfriend, so we have a cat, so there's some touching going on, so that's good. I don't know what I would do if I lived by myself. I think that would be very hard for me personally. So.
Yeah, I live by myself, and it's
Oh.
okay, but it's it's a little weird. Because
Yeah. Do you have a
I'm
pet?
probably someone you would describe as an introvert that likes to be around people,
Yeah.
that goes out every day.
Yes. And
So
introverts need love too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You have an animal?
I don't even have a
Damn
plant.
it.
I don't even have a
Maybe
plant, Jennifer.
oh God, you need some. Maybe you should go get a dog just for the interim.
I live on a second floor. I
Or
think
a
it would be
cat.
really cruel to have a dog, like for the person that lives underneath me. I think that would be,
Oh, I see. I see.
not
I
very,
see.
not very fair.
All right. How about a gerbil? Hamster. I, yeah.
Yeah.
Someone just snuggle.
Well,
Yeah.
listen, thank you so much for taking some time out today.
Thank
I really appreciate it because I've enjoyed checking in with people across the country, across the continent, actually. And it's been
Thank you for having
a
me. It's
decade.
such a delight to see you.
It's been a decade since we saw each other. So
I know.
yeah, hopefully one of us will make it to the other's coast at some point. And we'll see each other in
Yes.
person again.
I very much enjoy your Instagram feed.
I very much enjoy yours.
Thank you. Good. Thank you, John. It's so great to see you.
Thanks, Jennifer.